Welcome to Calm Coding, your weekly deep dive into the ever-changing world of cybersecurity. And wow, this week has seen a real surge in attacks, hasn't it? Plus some interesting law enforcement action.
It really has. A very dynamic week. It just underscores these persistent threats we're all facing, from massive companies right down to us as individuals.
So our mission today is basically to unpack all of this, figure out what it means for your security, and pull out the really crucial stuff you need to know. We're looking at articles mostly from Tech Radar today.
Sounds good. We're seeing attacks hitting retailers, critical infrastructure, and just the usual hum of activity from the more sophisticated threat groups.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Retail seems like a good place to start. Some big names got hit. First, Marks& and Spencer, M&S.
But, right, the big UK retailer. They had that cyber attack, and the fallout is, well, still ongoing.
Yeah, reports say personally identifiable information, PII, so names, contact details, that stuff was stolen, but crucially, no usable card details or passwords.
That's the key distinction, yeah. PII is definitely bad, don't get me wrong, but not having payment info compromised limits that immediate financial risk. Still, as we'll probably see with Dior later, even that kind of data can be weaponized.
Absolutely. And the disruption at M&S, it's been pretty major, hasn't it? Online orders still down weeks later.
Weeks later, yeah, click and collect is hit. Even some contactless payments in stores were affected, apparently.
And this figure, a 1 billion drop in market capitalization reported, that's staggering. It really shows the financial punch these things can pack.
Oh, absolutely. That kind of figure, plus the operational shutdown.
Uh-huh.
It strongly suggests ransomware, doesn't it? Locking down systems demanding payment.
Seems very likely. That operational paralysis is classic ransomware behavior, holding the business hostage, basically.
Exactly. And the financial fallout, like you said, isn't just lost sales, it's investor confidence, long-term reputation.
Yeah.
It's huge.
M&S is telling customers to reset passwords, just in case, even though they said passwords weren't taken. Sort of a better safe than sorry approach.
Standard procedure and good practice, really. Always good to reset after any potential issue.
We also saw that quote from Camelia Chan, the CEO of XPHY. She was talking about how ransomware gangs are just constantly evolving.
Right. Her point was about meeting multi-layered security using AI.
Hmm.
Because things are moving too fast for just human analysts, you need intelligent systems that adapt.
Makes sense. Traditional defenses struggle. You need that defense in depth, proactive stuff, AI helping out.
Definitely. AI can automate analysis, respond faster, maybe spot threats earlier. It reduces the load on security teams.
So for listeners, maybe think about dark web monitoring or check sites like Have I Been Prowled if you're worried about your data being out there from breaches like this one.
Always a good idea. Proactive steps are key.
Okay, let's switch over to another big brand, Dior, the fashion house. They also confirmed an attack.
Yeah, shows no sector is safe, right? High-profile brands are juicy targets. They've also said sensitive customer data was lost, but again, no payment or password info compromised.
They're working with third-party experts investigating.
Standard response. Bring in the specialists to figure out exactly what happened and how.
And it looks like notification emails went out, especially to Chinese customers, that gave some specifics on the data.
It did. Things like full names, gender, phone numbers, email, postal addresses, even purchase history.
Okay, so not financial data directly, but that's still a lot of personal detail.
A huge amount.
Yeah.
And incredibly valuable for attackers. Think about crafting phishing emails. If they know your name, address, and what you last bought from Dior.
Oh yeah, that email looks way more convincing than some random spam. Much higher chance of tricking someone.
Precisely. It weaponizes that seemingly less critical data. Very effective for social engineering.
And it seems like customers in Korea and China were the main ones hit. There's even talk of potential legal action in South Korea over how notifications were handled.
Yeah, notification requirements and timings can be tricky legally across different regions. That adds another layer of complexity for the breached company.
Interesting thing here, though, no group has claimed responsibility. And the data hasn't popped up on the dark web, at least not yet.
That is interesting. Could mean a few things. Maybe the attackers are still sifting through it. Maybe their motive isn't just selling the data. Or maybe they're planning a more targeted use later. Hard to say right now.
Definitely one to keep an eye on. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Global X Airline. This one's slightly different because of their work.
Right. They assist with deportations for the Trump administration. They spotted unauthorized activity back on May 5th. kicked off their incident response.
They're saying operations weren't really disrupted and the impact won't be material, financially speaking.
But the context here is key, isn't it? They've been targeted before. Anonymous defaced their website previously.
Yeah, apparently protesting the deportation work and alleged court order violations. So the motive might not be money here. It could be hacktivism, making a statement.
Exactly. And after that earlier incident, there were those unconfirmed reports about flight records, passenger manifests being stolen.
If that happened again this time, well, that's highly sensitive stuff. Could expose details about people who've been deported, real-world consequences beyond just dollars and cents.
Absolutely crucial point. Privacy implications are massive there. Revealing those details could put individuals at risk. It adds that ethical dimension you sometimes see.
Okay, moving to critical infrastructure now. Nucor, the biggest U.S. steelmaker, also hit.
Yeah, they had to shut down some operations temporarily to contain it. Filed with the SEC, brought in the experts, law enforcement involved.
They called the shutdown temporary and proactive, but still, halting production at a major steel plant. That sounds serious.
It really does. That kind of operational halt often points towards, well, ransomware again. Systems locked, production stops.
And there were those reports about phone lines being down at some sites, too, another potential ransomware sign.
Could be. And given Nucor's role, I mean, largest U.S. steel manufacturer, critical infrastructure, they're a prime target for ransomware gangs looking for a big payout or major disruption.
Makes sense. An attack there could ripple through so many other industries. Even a short disruption matters.
Definitely impacts supply chains, the wider economy, and just because there's no public ransom demand yet doesn't mean it wasn't ransomware. Sometimes those demands come later.
Right. Okay, let's talk tactics now. There's this new campaign, ClickFix. It's hitting Windows and Linux now, which is interesting.
It's very interesting, especially the Linux part. ClickFix works by tricking people, social engineering them into running commands in their own console or terminal.
How does that even work? People just copy-paste commands from a website.
Well, it uses compromised websites to get these pop-ups. Looks like an update notification or maybe a CAPI CHA verification,
Ah, okay.
And instead of clicking a button, it tells you, copy this command and paste it into your terminal to verify. And some people, well, they do it.
Wow, okay. And the attackers get the user to basically install the malware themselves that way, bypassing security warnings.
Exactly. And now it's targeting Linux too. That's the newer development. Historically, these things focus more on Windows.
Who's behind this one?
It's being attributed to APT-36, a Pakistani group, also known as Transparent Tribe. They're using a fake Indian Ministry of Defense website in this campaign.
A fake government site.
Yeah.
Okay. And it directs you differently depending on if you're on Windows or Linux.
Yeah, shows some technical planning, tailoring the attack.
With the Linux version, for now at least, it's experimental.
Yeah.
Just downloading a picture file.
Right. Currently just a harmless JPEG. But that's almost certainly a test run. They're checking if the command execution works on Linux, refining the method.
So the real malware could come next, that's the warning.
Absolutely. They test with something benign, work out the bugs, then deploy the nasty payload. It's a clear sign Linux users need to be wary of these social engineering tricks too. They're not immune.
Good warning. Okay, another trend. SAP NetWeaver vulnerabilities being exploited by ransomware gangs. That sounds bad. SAP handles critical business stuff.
It is bad. Very concerning. There's this specific flaw, CVE 2025-31324, in the Visual Composer part. It allows malicious uploads without even needing login details. Maximum severity.
Unauthenticated uploads. Yikes. SAP patched it quickly though, right?
They did, yeah. But ransomware groups like Bianlian and RansomX are already using it in attacks. It's that classic race patch versus exploit.
Shows how fast organizations need to apply those patches. These groups move quickly.
Incredibly quickly. Reports showed malware deployment happening just hours after the vulnerability details came out sometimes. They integrate these exploits rapidly.
And it gets worse. There's another SAP vulnerability being used with that first one.
Yeah, separate zero-day, CVE 2025-42999 in the NetWeaver server itself.
Yeah.
Also critical. They're chaining them together using one exploit to enable the next one.
Ah, chaining exploits. That's how they get deeper access, right? Bypass different defenses.
Exactly. That combination is really dangerous for companies running unpatched SAP systems. It opens a serious attack path.
Okay, let's shift to some slightly more positive news. Law enforcement side, Europol took down a criminal banking network.
Yes, a significant operation. Dismantled one of those parallel banking networks. These networks operate outside the official system, laundering money for criminals.
Including cybercriminals, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. They're crucial infrastructure for laundering profits from all sorts of crime, cybercrime definitely included. So taking one down is a good win.
They arrested 17 people across Europe, mostly Chinese and Syrian nationals.
That's right. And seized about 4.5 million in assets, cash, crypto, devices, even firearms. Shows good international cooperation.
Yeah, Europol highlighted that. This network served Arabic and Chinese-speaking crime groups, showing how interconnected it all is. They even traced money back to migrant smuggling investigations.
It really underscores that. Cybercrime doesn't happen in a vacuum. The financial pipes often support other serious crimes.
Yeah.
Hitting the money side has broader impact.
Makes sense. Okay, last couple of topics. Insider threats and nation states. This report about North Korean IT workers infiltrating Western companies for years. That sounds persistent.
It really is. This campaign, called Nickel Tapestry, apparently running since 2016 or so, North Korean hackers basically getting hired fraudulently into companies.
Why? What's the goal?
Seems like two main goals. One, generate income, their salaries, plus they might try to steal crypto. It all goes back to the regime. Two, steal sensitive data. Defense, aerospace, tech companies, espionage, basically.
And they get inside access by being employees. How do they get hired?
Sophisticated impersonation, using fake identities, pretending to be professionals from Japan, Vietnam, Singapore, the U.S.
Yeah.
Apparently, now maybe even using AI tools to help create fake profiles for past interviews.
Wow. So companies need to be really careful verifying candidates, especially for remote roles.
Extremely careful, rigorous background checks, maybe in-person interviews if possible. And then crucially, ongoing monitoring for insider threat activity once someone's hired. Look for unusual network access, data movement.
Makes sense. Need that continuous vigilance. Okay, finally, this disputed story about a Department of Homeland Security DOGE software engineer. Credentials compromised by info-stealer malware.
Yeah, researchers claim this engineer's personal computer got infected multiple times, exposing credentials via stealer logs, malware that grabs usernames and passwords saved in browsers and apps.
What's disputed?
Right. Alon Gal from Hudson Rock looked into it and said his data didn't support the repeated infection claim. So the facts are a bit murky there.
But it still raises the point about security hygiene, especially for government employees, right? Keeping personal and work stuff separate and secure.
Absolutely. Regardless of this specific case, it's a reminder for everyone, especially those in sensitive roles, to practice really good cybersecurity. Protect your credentials. Be wary of malware.
Okay, so wrapping up this week's deep dive, quite a few themes emerged, didn't they?
Definitely. The relentless threat of ransomware hitting diverse sectors, the way attackers keep getting smarter, like that ClickFix campaign now hitting Linux.
Yeah, and the targets are everywhere. Retail, airlines, critical infrastructure like steel. Plus, that need for vigilance against external threats and insiders, including those nation-state actors like North Korea.
And it was good to see that law enforcement win against the financial network, too. Shows they are making progress disrupting the criminal ecosystem.
And that point about PII, even if payment details aren't stolen, losing names, addresses, purchase history, that creates real risks, like those targeted phishing attacks we talked about.
Absolutely. Any data breach gives attackers ammunition. It can be used in so many ways later on.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening this week. Threat actors are constantly evolving, constantly changing targets and techniques. So how are you making sure your security approach is proactive, multi-layered? What steps can you actually take, starting today, to go beyond just the basic defenses? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on Calm Coding.